This KLRN program is proudly supported by HEB.
So Antioch actually took out the largest loan for a church as it was developing its current sanctuary. A lot of people around the state, I should say the largest loan of a black church in the state of Texas. A lot of people are surprised by that. Just talk to me a little bit about the history of the pastoral leadership and how that came to be.
Well, it's interesting because the loan was $500,000. Well, that's not a whole lot in 2021 terms, but back in that time, it was a lot for an African American church. Pastor J.J. Rector was a preacher of national prominence and a great messenger, leader of people, and his influence led to a great influx of members of Antioch, so that the previous building wasn't sufficient to handle the congregation. And with the Lord's help and the influence of a lot of people who were willing to help with this project, the Antioch Church was able to get that tremendous loan.
Yeah, and from there, of course, your church continued to build. We talked a little bit about Antioch Village. You had a partnership with HUD, some $1.25 million, constructed that. In today's terms, it'd probably be 30 million or something of that nature. Right. And you were noted as having one of the best run HUD developments in the nation. You're still operating that facility. What are the needs that are met by the church being involved in housing?
Well, I have to be completely upfront and let you know that Antioch is no longer running Antioch Village.
Then I won't. Okay, then I apologize for that. I didn't realize that.
Not
I
a problem. Actually, we sold it. It's been run by a different company, but the company kept the Antioch Village name.
Well, that's very good. It has a long legacy. There's no doubt about that. The church has also been on the national map, hosting recently a national convention. Tell us a little bit about the significance of the convention, and which convention was that?
Well, we're part of the National Baptist Convention of America International Incorporated. Our national president is President Sam Talbot, who pastors a church right down the road from us, actually, in Lake Charles, Louisiana. And so he wanted us to host our midwinter board back in 2019. And we were blessed to be able to do that with people from all over the nation coming and being a part of that convention.
I want to go back to the fight with the Alamo College District, because I remember being in St. Paul United Methodist Church, where Reverend Walker had called everyone to come to really announce the campaign to vote it down, send it back, get it right. He gave a stirring sermon, as he always did, as you always do, and motivated the community towards this really Herculean effort. There was a symbiosis that happened. The pastors took care of mobilizing. There were neighborhood people who literally went to the District 9 Northside Neighborhood Alliance and talked about not giving up the roots you've already planted. They had roots at St. Philip's, at San Antonio College. They were looking to move the Alamo College Nursing and other programs, making things less accessible. And it's very, very rare that that kind of unity happens, because the message won over. The North Side voted and agreed with the poll plan that Reverend Walker. Just tell me a little bit from your perspective, watching it, being there, working in tandem, maybe some things that we maybe never knew or heard, or just the kind of conversations of Reverend Walker about this and the mobilization that happened with the pastors and the conversations. Did people doubt that we could do this? I mean, just kind of talk to me about the behind the scenes.
Well, wow, it was quite inspiring to watch Pastor Walker work with the leaders of the Community of Churches for Social Action, and not just the Community of Churches for Social Action, but also other leaders within our community. Of course, he had a number of things that were quite remarkable that allowed him that type of leadership. First, he was very well educated. and people respected that. The second is that he was a tremendous speaker and motivator. That allowed him that ability to enter into some areas that maybe some other people might not have been able to. And then he had the respect of his peers, so that it was not just E. Thurman Walker. It was all of those people who respected what he was doing. And then he talked about something that he actually mentioned some years later with the election of President Obama, and that is the zeitgeist. The zeitgeist being that the time was right to do what was done, and bringing together that coalition of leaders outside of just the faith community, outside of just the east side of San Antonio, and determining that this was the right thing to do. Not that it was just the right thing for the east side or the right thing for St. Philip's or the right thing for the Alamo Community College District, but the right thing. And because of that, we saw, I think, and I'm certain, we saw that the right thing was done.
You've continued to provide leadership in the midst of crisis with the pandemic. You are also a medical doctor in addition to being a pastor. Talk to us a little bit about how the church has been used for vaccines and just outreach and education on the pandemic.
Well, the Black church, and I'm specifically speaking about the church that's predominantly Black, has not been just a place to worship. As you mentioned before, which we probably, just the two of us, sometimes might use in a pejorative fashion, is not just a place to hoop and holler. Okay, but what we've seen is that entity called the church is a place where people learn about health, they learn about politics, they learn about sociology, they learn about history. It happens in that body. And fortunately, I've been able to help with my training in health, in medicine, and use that as part of the pulpit, if you will, to get the message out, particularly in this pandemic. The message about how the vaccine is helpful and how the virus is transmitted, what we need to do as a people to reduce the transmission. So I've been blessed because, you know, I've been given the tremendous honor of serving as the Antioch Missionary Baptist Church senior pastor. With that, and being able to parlay my knowledge of medicine, it's just been a tremendous privilege.
One last question. The big challenge today is keeping democracy and freedom going. I've been watching the Community of Churches of Social Action go to Austin, fighting for voting rights and making sure that freedom is continued. Politicians come through the church all the time looking for support. Tell me a little bit about the conversation of the pastors aren't always involved on every issue, but they have sought fit to be on the picket line and march on the issue of voting rights. What's been the conversation there?
Well, we believe, and I think I can speak for several of our pastors on this issue, we believe that it's a moral issue. It's not simply an issue of politics. It's an issue of morality. It is morally wrong to seek to inhibit a person's ability to vote. The country was built on the premise that everyone should have the ability to vote. We learned back in school that part of the reason the Revolutionary War occurred was because there was taxation without representation. Well, who are we if we don't allow our people to vote, if we put up barriers to keep people from voting? And we think about John Lewis, and we think about the Freedom Riders. We think about Bloody Sunday in Alabama. And all of that is to naught if we don't do our part in making sure that every American every citizen of this country is allowed to vote without hindrances.
Well, thank you very much, Reverend Dr. I almost called you Walker. Dr. Kemp. We've had a lot of good history. Thank you for joining us.
Been my pleasure. Love it.